Hello everyone, this is Mr. Everett bringing you another short mini lesson to take back with you this week as we work again with this poetry unit. Today you have two learning targets. The first is to differentiate between enjambed and end-stopped lines. The second is to compare and contrast the structure of different texts, in this case poems, analyzing how their line structure impacts meaning. But before we get into all that, we need to make sure that we do actually define, well, what exactly a line is in poetry.
Line.
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 All jokes aside, a line is essentially just a row of words. Yeah, in a poem, it's a row of words. And I know you might be thinking, Everett, it's got to be way more than that. But no, it really is pretty much that simple. Here we have 3 lines. It's all essentially one thought, but when you look at it as a poem, every single row of words counts as its own line. And here's the thing. There's 2 specific types of line that you'll see in virtually any poem, and for that matter, any song as well. The first is just called end-stopped. End-stopped lines end with some form of punctuation, exclamation point, comma, period, question mark, something like that, that signals the end of the phrase or idea. Enjambed lines end with no punctuation, and this is because the phrase or idea that they have continues on. So let's just see an example. Look on the left side here. This is an example of 2 end-stopped lines. I am someone new. Who, by chance, are you? Okay. The second one is enjambed. It reads a little differently, not crazy different, it's not going to be wild, but it does change some of how this sounds. I am someone new. Who, by chance, are you? Oh, by the way, can we just appreciate the rhythm here? That da 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 da. Da you want to forget last week's lesson. Rhythm is significant here. It makes for this smooth sounding tone here. I am someone new. Who, by chance, are you? But let's not get lost here. Remember, end stopped means there's a period or something else at the end that signals this line, its phrase, is done. Enjambed is continuing that idea or thought onto the next line, and so you won't have an enjambed line end with punctuation. Let's look at an example of how enjambment and end stops can really change the meaning and possibly even the tone of a poem. Here is just one line. Then I looked up and saw the starry sky. So if we change it, here it's 2 lines. Both of them are end stopped, right? Punctuation at the end. Then I looked up and saw the starry sky. Smooth rhythm, right? It's just pretty clear. This person looks up, they see the starry sky. Let's see what happens when we enjam it creatively. Look how this reads. Then I looked up and saw the starry sky. This one change here makes it so that the word then takes on a lot more importance, like this person is pausing, considering, and then they look up. Now, look at this other version. Then I looked up and saw the starry sky. Now here, we've enjammed it twice, after looked up and then and saw. And notice a new emphasis, and saw by itself, like suddenly it's a focus on the looking, the seeing, the revealing of this starry sky. And there's only about 1,000,000 different ways that you can mess around with enjambment, but every single one of these changes the meaning of the poem ever so slightly. Now, to give you an example that I want you to try, I want you to try enjamming this one line creatively. Reading is better with a warm, sleepy cat. So, here's what I want you to do. This can be on scratch paper, you can just imagine it in your mind, but I want you to pause this video, And I want you to think of several different ways you could cut this one line into multiple, either and stopping it, add a comma, a little punctuation where the thoughts consider and stop themselves, or and jam it. Have lines or words sort of standing by themselves. Do what you want with it, but I'll have you pause here. 3, 2, 1, pause. Alright, we're back, and here's the thing, if you didn't pause, just fair warning, there will be assassin laser cats coming after you in very short order. Please do not try to pet them, they're licensed professionals, and they can tell when you didn't pause the video, so expect a visit. In any case, the general rule is this: line structure does impact meaning. Tone too, of course, but it really does change what a poem means. It's not usually an accident. Poets don't just say, I'll throw this here or there and see what happens. So, just a reminder, here's another example. 3 end-stop lines. Once close friends, we tore apart, like pieces of paper in a windstorm. Again, it's a decent meaning. You understand what it's getting at. A friendship torn apart and stopped. Take a look here, though, at how enjamming can enhance this idea. Once close friends, we tore apart like pieces of paper in a windstorm. Now it's almost like the poem itself is being torn apart, and because of that, the meaning of the poem grows greater. Now the friendship actually feels like it's torn apart. Now again, I'll remind you, you got 2 targets here. 1. Differentiate between enjammed and end-stop lines. Check the definition if you need. And 2. Compare and contrast the structure of different texts, analyzing how line structure impacts meaning. Now I'm about to go to 2 different examples here, so stay with me for the jump and we'll look at 2 very different poems and how their structures change their meaning. Okay, let's take a look at this first poem, There Will Come Soft Rains, by Sara Teasdale. Notice this was written quite some time ago. Alright, let's get into it. There will come soft rains, and the smell of the ground, and swallows circling with their shimmering sound, and frogs in the pools singing at night, and wild plum trees in tremulous white. Robins will wear their feathery fire, whistling their whims on a low fence wire. And not one will know of the war, not one will care at last when it is done. Not one would mind, neither bird nor tree, if mankind perished utterly, and Spring herself, when she woke at dawn, would scarcely know that we were gone. Now, a couple words just to check. If you don't know what tremulous means, it means just kind of a timid, which you're saying, well, why would a plum tree be timid? Well, we'll see in a moment. Then the almost last line here, perished, means simply to die. And you say, ooh, Everett, death. Okay, we're finally getting to some hardcore poetry here. Essentially, the meaning of this, we've got this beautiful nature, we've got a whole lot of peace, but this was written around the time of a war. And this poet is simply saying, well, if mankind during this war were to absolutely destroy humans back and forth, nature is still going to go on. Nature will be just fine, even if all humans die off the face of the earth. A little sad, but let's see how the line structure itself adds to the meaning here. Notice, the vast majority of these lines are end-stopped. Not only that, they're also about the same length, which, by the way, if you notice the rhythm, good for you. All of this sounds peaceful, incredibly peaceful. Let's just hear again the first couple lines. There will come soft rains and the smell of the ground, and swallows circling with their shimmering sound. End-stopped lines, peaceful, slow. If this poem is about nature being peaceful and moving on after humans have destroyed ourselves, each line is this peaceful, end-stopped, simple movement, which, by the way, notice the rhyme helps that too. You have ground, sound, night, white. Everything flows together smoothly in this poem. Now, we're about to contrast that with a very, very different poem. Let's move to it now. This is called Heart to Heart by Rita Dove. It's neither red nor sweet. It doesn't melt or turn over, break or harden, so it can't feel pain, yearning, regret. It doesn't have a tip to spin on. It isn't even shapely, just a thick clutch of muscle, lopsided, mute, still. I feel it inside, its cage sounding a dull tattoo. I want, but I can't open it. There's no key. I can't wear it on my sleeve, or tell you from the bottom of it how I feel. Here, it's all yours now, but you'll have to take me too. Notice immediately, this is almost polar opposite to the other poem. Huge amounts of these lines are enjambed, like we have it doesn't have. Notice that line continues to the next. It isn't even. Everything is moving towards that next line, and all of the lines you'll notice are very short, whether they are enjambed and then stopped. And let's think for just a moment. Here we have a poem about the heart. Again, it's neither red nor sweet. It doesn't melt or turn over. It's true. Our hearts are just a muscle. And so this is talking about what it means to have a real heart. But as it does, we have these short lines, and I can't claim to claim credit for this idea, but these short lines and their rhythm sound awfully like a heartbeat. It's neither red nor sweet. It doesn't melt or turn over. It's steady. It's small. It's not as smooth as the other. It's more of this very short, pulsing, sort of pounding lines that move forward and get this idea of the heart, of the continuous movement of it. So again, if this is about the heart, the line length itself can play a big role in how that sounds. And again, compare this to There Will Come Soft Rains with its incredibly smooth and stopped lines. Well, Heart to Heart is almost entirely enjambed. It's shortened. The lines sort of jump from idea to the other, never quite finishing their thought. So, two separate poems, each of which uses their own style, some of them more enjambed lines, some of them more in stopped, longer, shorter, and each of these adds to the meaning of the poem. Again, if our target is to differentiate between enjambed and end-stopped lines, simply remember, enjambed, well, there's no punctuation. The line idea keeps on moving on, and stopped, the line finishes its thought, the phrase, the idea, it has punctuation, and then you'll have a little more practice this week looking at the structures of a few different poems, and trust me, it takes a little while, but you'll have a chance to practice looking at how this line and structure might actually impact the meaning of a poem. That's all for this week, but keep your eyes open for updates in the future as we continue to explore this interesting world of poetry. Stay safe out there.